Hey, it's Whitney from EcoVeganGal.com, and welcome back to the EVG Uncensored channel, in which I share my thoughts, opinions, and feelings on the world that are not necessarily about veganism. And today is a very intimate, personal something. I don't have the word for exactly what this is. I've been having a really hard day. And I was sitting here thinking that what I wanted to do about it, and one thing I really wanted to do was to talk about it. I feel really good to talk about it. And I was sitting here thinking, like, who do I want to talk with about it? And I realized that I've already talked about it to the people that I wanted to talk to about it. And you know, like when you have friends, you don't want to over talk about the same thing. And I just feel tapped out at the moment in terms of who I can talk to about how I'm feeling. And then there's you. You know, I've said this before, that these videos are often very therapeutic for me, and I am so grateful that you watch and you're interested and you're inspired. And it's amazing to me that you can feel inspired by the ups and downs of someone's life, I guess, but maybe it makes sense. It's just hard to see when it's yourself, you know? But I read your comments and they really inspire me to keep going. So opening my heart feels really good to do here. And I'm so grateful, especially in days like today where this is kind of what I want right now. So, my challenging day has set me through so many big emotions, and I want to start off by saying that I encourage you to try what I've been trying, because I know that it's going to work eventually. And this thought process is something that I've really found helpful. I've struggled with really strong emotions throughout my whole life, and this day reminds me of one day when I was in college as a freshman. I think it was right towards the end of my freshman year, and I was starting to see a therapist for the first time. I started seeing my therapist because of an eating disorder, and once I worked through the eating disorder, I started to work on other things in my life, because really the eating disorder was like connected to a lot of emotions, right? As most things are in life, we make choices and we handle things through our emotions. And I actually ended up going on antidepressants because I was really struggling and I wanted to try them. Of course, I would never do that now, but for whatever reason, it felt like the right thing to do. And I felt really desperate. I wanted something to take the pain away. And I don't think I've ever been seriously suicidal. I think, as many people have, had times where you just feel so sad and so low, like it crosses your mind or something, but it was never that serious for me. And I don't even know if what the depression that I was facing was that abnormal. I don't know. I remember just really, really struggling with it. And I distinctly remember this one time in college in my dorm room, and I was like crawling out of my skin. Like I just felt so low. And I felt low a lot of times. And that's why I started seeing the therapist and taking the medication, because I was like, what do I do? How do I get out of this? The older I've gotten, I realized that that's just kind of part of life and the struggles and dealing with challenges. I think many of us start to face those sort of things during college because it's the first time we're kind of away from home for many of us. We're in new settings. We're facing new challenges. We're beginning to feel like an adult. It's very scary and overwhelming. And so ever since then, you know, I've had so many challenges. And I've had challenges from being heartbroken over relationships or confused. I've had challenges career-wise. I've had challenges just self-esteem-wise. I mean, so many different things. And it's interesting, though, like for whatever reason, whatever I'm feeling today reminds me of that day, unlike anything else. And it's that feeling of just wanting to crawl out of my skin, because I just want to get out of it. And luckily I've built so many tools over time that I don't feel the desire to go to a therapist or take medication right now. I feel more the desire to reflect on it and talk about it. And I really would encourage you to try the same, whether it's journaling or recording a video or talking to a friend or doing a video like this, or maybe therapy is a good decision for you, whatever it is, but just talking through it. And also just reminding myself that, there's light at the end of the tunnel type of a thing is so, so important when you're having really hard days. And it's interesting that today isn't really that hard of a day or challenging. Like the simple things, I just got set off emotionally. And I think it's, to me, more just like I feel it physically. Of course, it doesn't help that I'm starting my menstrual cycle. So all you ladies out there, you know how it is sometimes. We all have different versions of it in our life, but man, your mood can be so thrown off. And it started yesterday, and so today I'm still like in that hormonal state, and it's interesting there too. But wow, it's so interesting just feeling like I want to run away from myself. And I'm trying to find a way to describe it because it's a very specific feeling. It's not like a feeling of wanting to give up, although that always crosses my mind, but that's kind of like an old thing. Is that feeling of, I forget it. When you get really upset about something, it's like, I'm done with this. And that's not really how I feel. I've had little like spats of it. It's like internally I feel like my insides are throwing a tantrum. Is that the word? I think so, right? For some reason, they're throwing a fit. It's like that anger, and I feel like there's like a little person inside me that's like trying to get out and is like throwing a fit inside me. It's so angry, like I'm physically worked up because of my emotions today. And that's such a fascinating feeling. And so I've been trying to fix it through all these different ways. Like the first thing I did was like talking to other people, and that helped. But physically, I was just like going nuts. So I'm like, I'm going to go get some really good food. And I went to the grocery store. I had no intention of shopping today. I shopped yesterday, but yesterday I had a really good gluten-free pasta with really great sauce. And it was very soul food. Like it was very simple, but it was so, what's the word I'm looking for? Comforting. So I got up, and even though I didn't really have time to, I went to the store and I bought that, and I bought kombucha, and I bought some chocolate, and I was like, I don't care how much this costs. I'm not even tell you how much I spent on those simple 3 items, but it was a lot because they were all expensive, and I came home and I ate them, and I felt good about it, but I didn't solve it. So it's funny, like I tried to like fix the problem, and talking to friends, eating food, relaxing, like, nothing seems to work. And then I was just sitting here before I started recording the video thinking, I just have to sit here with it. I just have to think about it and work my way through it. You can't run away from things like this. You can try. I could go drink some alcohol. I could potentially do drugs. There's so many different things that you could do. I don't know if you're going to get distracted by Evie. Back there, she's distracting me. I really wish I could like go to yoga, go walk, but it's too late now and it's raining. And, there's so many things. It's just like, it's almost like panicking. And that's why it reminds me of when I was in college, of like that panic mode of just wanting to get out of it. But maturity and experience has taught me that you just can't sometimes. Sometimes you just have to wait it out. Sometimes you just have to sit through it and reflect on it and just wait for it to go away. And I kind of feel like that's where I'm at today. I was thinking, what is going to make me feel better? Should I have a conversation with a friend? And maybe could they say something? Could I, is there somebody that I know would say something? Like all those things. And I realized that nothing anybody would say would really help, I don't think. And no food, not even the most expensive, my favorite food is going to help. Like, it's kind of like when you go through a breakup and it's just like nothing helps but time. You just have to sit there. You can sleep it out. That's always, to me, of all the things you could do, like sleep. Like, maybe I just need to go take a really long nap and not set a timer and just sleep, because I also feel so exhausted from being so emotionally worked up. So that's actually a good idea. I will probably try that, and I would recommend that, right? I mean, we've all been there too, where like you're just depressed and you sleep, and it doesn't end up usually helping though. You kind of wake up and then you have to deal with it again. It's almost like you delay it. Maybe sleep is not a good idea. Taking care of yourself in some way is though, and that's why like eating really good food, your favorite foods, as long as they're healthy, like the things I bought were all healthy. So that's taking care of myself, and taking a nap could be taking care of myself. I'm definitely going to like lay down in bed and watch a movie or read or something, like that's taking care of myself. But I know that the emotions are still going to hang there. So the other thing I wanted to get to was that I started reflecting on some of the reasons I was feeling the way that I'm feeling. And I came up with some really interesting things. And this is where like the really personal side of it comes up. And I want to preface this by saying that I really mean it, where I don't feel like people saying something to me is going to make me feel better. And sometimes it makes me a little uncomfortable, and this is my own issue, right? But I do feel uncomfortable when I express myself, and I'm not trying to look for comfort, I guess. The reason I express myself here is because I love doing it, and I love connecting with you. And what I really would love from you is just more relating. That's what I would love to hear in a comment. I do appreciate it when you say, kind things and you give me some nice feedback. That's of course always nice, and I'm so grateful for that. But what I would really love is just to hear what you can relate to and how you've worked through it and lessons you've learned. Like that's my favorite from you, is those type of comments. So just a little heads up, things to think about here. I would love to know if you can relate to what I'm about to say, was that I thought about what was triggering me and why I'm feeling so worked up today. And as I was reflecting about it, I realized that it's something I really need to deal with and work on. And it's a really great gift to feel the way I'm feeling today, because it's forcing me into acknowledging something that I might have kept pushing back, which is like why I get triggered by things. I think it's so important for us to find out what triggers us and why, because we all have these certain sensitivities based in our life. For me, the course of events that happened today, where I kept feeling like I was a failure, while logically I know I'm not a failure, I did feel like I failed at some things that happened today, or I screwed up. But even more importantly was like not feeling good enough, which if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that that's a reoccurring thing for me, is not feeling good enough. And it's an interesting thing because I know that I do good work based on feedback and based on just the feeling of it usually. I often feel very satisfied and proud of myself, and I feel accomplished, and comparing to how far I've come, like logically I can see all of that, but it's more about this root of really old stuff. Most of us are triggered by things that happened as kids. And that's why I don't think it really helps when somebody says, but you are good enough, because it's not something that somebody can just say. You have to realize it and come to terms with it yourself. And Evie, that is what I'm trying to do right now, is to connect with where those emotions came from and to kind of like pardon the past, if that makes sense. There's a quote, I think, in this ebook I'm reading, or this book that I'm reading right now, that I might try to pull up. But I was watching The Imitation Game last night, which is a really wonderful movie. And I probably shouldn't tell you what happened at the end, but now I'm debating. I'm not going to ruin the movie for you by saying this, but spoiler alert, just in case, you might want to pause the next minute. The movie is about Alan Turing, I believe is his name. And at the very, very end of the movie, it talks about how he was pardoned by the Queen of England after he passed away. That's all I'll say. The spoiler's done. I don't know if that'll spoil it. Some people don't want to know anything about a movie. Right? I'm one of those people, because then they'd be like, I didn't know he died. I mean, the movie's from World War II, so I think maybe it's safe to assume many of the people that were in the movie have passed away. But anyways, wanted to give you that opportunity, not to ruin anything. So it was interesting because he passed away, and I think it was the Queen of England that pardoned him. She pardoned him after he passed away for something that probably should have happened before he passed away, right? And today I'm thinking I can kind of, or any of us can choose to pardon ourselves from the past. Not just forgiving ourselves, but for healing ourselves from the past. And as we know that it would have been better had we recognized this and done this back then, we're here now, so we can be proactive now with our choices. So for me, it's looking back at little Whitney or younger Whitney, whatever age she was, and just trying to heal whatever happened then. And I haven't quite figured out why it is that I have these feelings of not being good enough, but they've showed up so much in my life, and they've been so much of a part of my decisions in life. And I think that's true of all of us. I think that it's life just keeps adding on to aspects of, and let's say that you really want to please somebody. I'm using blocks, and so you want to please them. And so the next step that you make has everything to do with the pleasing. And then it's you keep wanting to please, so you keep adding on to your life. You're stacking things up. And ultimately, all the stuff they do way up here is really all related to what happened down here. And I feel like that's the case, is all these decisions in my life and choices and motivations come from those kind of core things that happened as a kid. And somewhere early on, I felt like I wasn't good enough. And it's so sad. What a sad thing. I'm going to try not to get choked up about it, because it makes me sad to think about a younger self, not feeling that, think about that as a kid. And I'm sure that you can relate to that somewhere along the line. How sad to have that emotion. And I don't know if I even fully recognized it, but for whatever reason, somewhere early on, I felt like I wasn't good enough. And I think that I've spent so much of my life trying to prove myself. And I do have very strong memories of that in high school, for instance, of just feeling like I wasn't really being paid much attention to. And I was, as far as I know, not the type that was trying to get attention. I definitely did things that tried to get attention like any other teenager. But I don't think anybody in high school would have thought back and been like, oh yeah, Whitney was always trying to get attention. Because I was also kind of shy in a lot of ways in high school. And I didn't want, I didn't like to draw too much attention to myself in some ways, although I did want it. I'm just like anyone. Like, I wanted to be recognized. I wanted to have a boyfriend. I wanted to be thought as pretty. I wanted to, what else do you want as a teenager? Mainly those things, right? Like the opposite sex or whoever you're attracted to, you want them to like you and accept you. There's a major concern about acceptance, and I don't think I really felt accepted. I had rejections from boys, I had rejections from female friends, rejections from teachers, rejections from parents. And I wonder if we all have that. That's one thing I'm curious about you, is that, did you feel a lot of that too? And does everybody feel rejected? I mean, it almost makes me want to go back and talk to some of the kids in school that I admired and thought were really cool, like the popular kids, and ask them how they felt. Or the like really good students, how did they feel? I mean, I'm sure everybody has some sort of insecurity or whatever, but is that feeling of rejection strong? Because it felt really strong for me, even though it didn't really occur to me how rejected I felt. So for me, it's really hard when I try to do something and it doesn't turn out quite as planned. Or I always have great intentions with things, but it gets received the wrong way, or I made a mistake, or, all those sort of things. Like, I'm very sensitive to that. And those perfectionist tendencies I have, it's so hard when people point out imperfections. That really gets to me. That's why, like, negative YouTube comments hurt, especially when they're like, you said this wrong, and, or you're incorrect, or, your hair looks bad in this video, like anything, like whatever. Those are hurtful because in my brain, it's all coming back down that little block that I showed you earlier to this root feeling of like, oh my gosh, they notice my imperfections. That means they're rejecting me. That means that I'm not good enough. That means that I failed. Like, and then it's like this horrible feeling. And it's such basic stuff. I think I'm curious to see if all of you can relate to that. How many people are going to say that they can totally relate, or if it's something slightly different for you. But regardless, I really want to heal that part because I hate feeling that. Because I know logically that I'm doing such a great job in like almost everything. And I think some people just think that I'm naturally good at things, and people tell me that now. Like, I've definitely achieved a lot, and so people come and say, you're good at this and good at that, and I recognize that, and I'm good at certain things because I worked really hard at it. I'm a super hard worker, but I still see the flaws, and it's so sad that like, well, I don't want to live in that space where like I'm more concerned about the flaws. I want to focus on the perfections, not the imperfections of things. And this, what I mentioned earlier, I'm reading Tony Robbins' book, Money Master the Game. And I have never really been that into Tony Robbins, but this book is awesome. And I also just watched this video of him. It's a compilation. If I remember, I'll link to it down below. Remind me if I forget. It's a compilation of all these Tony Robbins, like motivational speaking. And one thing he said that really struck me was that, well, a couple of things. One was he was talking about not allowing positive thoughts to linger. It's not that you can't have not allowing negative thoughts. It's not that you completely shut them off and can turn off the ability to think anything negative. It's just that you don't let it sit there. So if you think I'm not good enough, you have to immediately turn it around and say, that's not true, and move on, and don't let it linger. And I think that's great advice. So I'm proactively working on that. That's a skill. That's not something that I can just turn on quite yet. I have to work towards that. It's a practice. And even Tony Robbins, despite, being in the motivational speaker world for over 30 years, he still has to work on that. The other thing that he said that really struck me was, and I was wondering if it was in the book or if it was in the talk, was about trying to, what was the word he used? It was something about, it started with the letter S. It was like this desire to I feel like it was like satisfy or something. I'm going to look through my notes real quick as I'm talking. And it really hit me, and I wanted to share that with you too, because I know so many people can relate, is that, you know, sometimes we have this motive. Oh, significance. Okay, here it is. He talked about it in this video too. Ah, this one is so true. When you look at human needs, which one do you think drives him the most? He was like a story he was sharing. Clearly, it's significance. And in this anecdote he was sharing, he said he thought that if he had $1 billion, people would take him seriously, he would matter. But the problem is that when he gets $1 billion, it still won't be enough, because when you seek significance, you're always comparing yourself with someone else. And there's always someone bigger, taller, stronger, faster, richer, funnier, younger, more handsome, more beautiful, with a bigger yacht, a nicer car, a nicer home. So while there's nothing wrong with significance, if you make it your number one need, you'll never be fulfilled. The truth is, you'll never make it happen until it seeks deep into your subconscious, the part of your mind so powerful that it makes your heart beat 100,000 times a day without ever having to think about it. And that was related to another part. But my point being is that when I read that, and also when I heard him talking about it in that compilation, I realized that significance is so key. That I do desire significance, and I think many of us do, but maybe I do a little bit more, because being significance, being accepted, feeling good enough, all of those things are all kind of tied in, and like those basically rule whether I feel good or not. If I feel like I did a good job, I feel good. If I feel accepted, I feel good. If I feel significant, I feel good. But if I feel insignificant, I feel bad. And if I feel rejected, I feel bad. And if I feel like a failure, if I wasn't good enough, I feel bad. And to me, the more I can recognize those as just things that I'm hanging on from and just emotions and my own reality, the easier it is to move past those hard feelings. Because truthfully, it's hard to know, like, it's such a subjective, is it subjective or objective? Biased, unbiased. You know, it really depends who you're asking. You might ask someone, I might be significant to you, but not significant to somebody else. So it's not something that's black or white. Significance is not just something, right? There's plenty of people in the world that are really significant and some people that just aren't. Or they're significant to a lot of people and not significant to others. And so working towards significance, and as Tony pointed out here, it's like there's always going to be someone who's better or more significant, and it's such a hard thing to go. So ultimately, I'm really working on not focusing on that, not that being my driving force, not that being my make or break in terms of my emotions, is that I don't want to live my life being happy as long as I'm accepted and being unhappy if I'm rejected. And looking back on what made me so upset that one day in college was, I think that it was about feeling like I wasn't good enough and feeling like I was being rejected. And so overwhelmed with those emotions and just feeling like there was nothing that could be done about it and feeling out of control. And of course I wanted to crawl out of my skin and take pills and make it all go away. But had I sat there and really meditated on the fact that everything was okay and that I was in the right place and I was doing everything I could, and just focused on what I was grateful for and what I was doing right and focused on all the positivity, perhaps I could have worked through that without the help of other external things. And to me, even through this video and this half hour, it's a long one, I feel so much better because I'm acknowledging those things and I'm really just reflecting and seeing the reality and just focusing on the positive and what I can do and who I am, and just not holding on to those negative thoughts. So if you're having a bad day today or a bad period of time, or if you can really relate to this, I hope that this helps. I hope that listening to me and writing your comment or reflecting internally about it really helps you shift. Thank you for helping me, listening, holding a space for me to speak my mind. You mean so much to me, and I love hearing from you, so I can't wait to read your comments. That's it for today. I'll see you next time. And in the meantime, you can check out ecovegangal.com and the main Eco Vegan Gal channel and the social media if you want to see what I'm up to and all the ways that I focus on positivity in my life, because I don't really focus on negativity on any of those platforms. This is the only place where I open up about it. But the good news is on those platforms, it's just all positivity. So go there, smile, be inspired, feel the positivity there, and know that you're actually part of that positivity, because through this channel, it's a very healing experience. So you heal me, and I hope that this helps heal you in some ways too. Keep spreading the love, pass it on. Tell other people about this, what this reminds you of. Read Tony's book, watch his compilation, and keep spreading the word, because you never know who needs it. You know, what's that quote? Each of us, something about how you never know everybody's fighting a hard battle. Is that it? Always be nice to people because you never know who's fighting a hard battle. Something like that. It's so true. Maybe you didn't know about the battles I face, but now you do. And I look forward to hearing about your battles and how you've overcome them in the comments. Okay.